Chefs, what red flags do you look for when you go out to eat? Story 1. Hi, I'm actually a chef here. 1. Divorce your mind from the bathroom is dirty idea. Bathrooms are not always the responsibility of the kitchen and don't necessarily reflect the state of the kitchen. Also, bathrooms see a lot of use, so it being untidy, not covered in crap, but paper on the floor, etc., isn't uncommon, especially at peak hours. A clean bathroom is a sign of good management. Same idea applies to menus. 2. Check the glassware, silverware, and plates. If they're spotty, there are 2 reasons. They're not polished or the system they are using isn't being maintained. This is a good sign of very few being given in both the front and back of the house. 3. If you have the opportunity to see the entrance to the kitchen from the outside, that should give you a clue about whether or not the kitchen staff is trained to take care of the premises. If there is a stack of empty boxes, bags of trash, litter, then they don't care. Pests and rodents eat anything. If you leave it out, they learn where to be. Then they find how to get in. 4. A little harder, but the trained eye and an experienced eater can learn a lot by what is on the menu. Some places use whatever processed product their main line sells them. Cisco, US Foods, Aramark, etc. They might be clean and well run, but still crappy. I suggest looking for a local place over the chains, though this doesn't always help. 5. Server attire. Generally speaking, a well-dressed staff means good service. It might not say anything about the food, but appearance counts. 6. Are they busy? If they're in the main part of town and not busy, that should tell you a lot. Overall, if your first experience doesn't leave you satisfied, not wow amazing, but good, then don't go back. I feel like we're starting off a little too level-headed and reasonable here. This is some really solid advice, which I don't always expect. Let's see if the rest of the thread holds up. Story 2. I only really skimmed, but nobody really answered the question. Sushi. Any kind of sushi burrito. Always fresh, never frozen. Nope. Sushi-grade fish has to be flash frozen because almost everything has parasites. If they are actually serving fresh-caught fish, they are dumb about food safety. Lion King roll, Shrek roll, any kind of bombs, really big pieces of fish on nigiri. Sushi for college kids, and whoever is cutting the fish doesn't know what they are doing. Hearing water continually running behind the sushi counter, that means they are improperly thawing something that doesn't get ordered much, and whatever they are thawing will have most of the flavor washed away. Meat. Kobe beef burgers. They are lying. Flat out lying to the point where it's disrespectful because they think they can get away with it, and they usually do. Grilled to perfection. You are at a chain restaurant. Perfect grill marks that only go in one direction. This piece of meat has never been in the same room as a grill. Red flags in general? Almost all Pan-Asian-inspired cuisine. A paragraph at the bottom of the menu describing their philosophy on food sustainability or saying, now this is a double-edged sword, there is house-made anything on the menu. Cocktail menus that describe in too much detail using words that people other than bartenders don't really understand. Gome, shrub, oleo, saccharine. This just means, look at me, I know how to make duck fat washed bourbon. Duck fat washed bourbon? Look, I order myself a nice scotch and that's it. If you wash my scotch in duck fat, I think I might be mad? Story 3. ITT. A lot of people pointing out that a lot of people in this thread are not chefs. Sarcasm aside, I don't have a culinary degree, but I did spend 10 years of my life in professional kitchens. Show up early and grab a drink at the bar. If the bar smells like dirty mop water, get the F out. If the bartender has to ask you what goes in an old-fashioned, get the F out. If the bartender is a rude prick, get the F out. If the front of the house is bad, the back will be even worse. I consider the maitre d' as simply the guy who greets me, not necessarily how I judge in front of the house. You can only tell so much from polished silverware. It's not hard to do, and almost every place stays on top of it. Doing things like that makes sure there isn't any dust on the bottles behind the bar, even the ones that hardly ever get used and need a ladder to reach. That takes real dedication and attention to detail. Other sure signs at the bar is last night's garnish. If your lime doesn't look and feel like it was cut in the last hour, get the F out. Conversely, if they are the good Luxardo cherries instead of the Dayglow red abominations, you're probably at a place that gives a crap about ingredients in the kitchen as well. Story 4. Personally, I'm very cautious of any buffet at all. Whenever I've had to replenish food out at the buffet, the customers just everything up with the utensils, and sometimes the utensils for dishing the food are clean, so that means they're using their own forks and spoons that they've had in their mouths. Then you have the little crap ped kids that the parents aren't paying attention to that are just grabbing food with their bare hands or spilling into other foods. Old people, like 80-year-olds that frequent the buffets, are gross enough when they're constantly coughing and clearing their throats and spitting while talking in the lineup, smacking their lips, and makes me squirm. Judge me for being judgy, but I've seen it firsthand at nearly every buffet I've worked at, but I won't go near one that isn't manned by a cook or served at the stations. If I see customers in sweatpants and a t-shirt at a buffet, I order from the menu. Honestly, I know what I'm getting into if I go to a buffet. I don't really go to buffets, but if I did, I'm well aware of the quality. It's like if I get some fast food. I know it's garbage, but sometimes I want my garbage, so back off. Story 5. Not a chef, but a bartender here. When I sit down at a bar, I watch how the bartender pours from their taps. If they stick the tap into the drink while they're pouring, I stick with a bottled drink. I was taught very early on not to do that, and having worked at a lot of places where I've seen the smegma of build-up, moldy drink residue, dead fruit flies that come out of those things when they're cleaned, usually after many, many months or years has passed in some cases, I'll always pass on tap drink if I see that. It's an often undercleaned, uncovered, unwiped part of the bar, and most people on the other side of the bar ever think twice. It's also a sign that other things like their soda guns and ice well are potentially being cleaned and sanitized properly. Not to mention their rags aren't being swapped out and sanitized. The list goes on. I don't bother the bartender, I don't make a scene, I just order a bottle because that isn't being handled by the establishment other than when they open it. Also, don't get me started on staff snacking out of the garnish tray. Ugh. Story 6. Waiter, not chef, but I agree with a lot I've read here. General cleanliness. If they can't keep the small things clean, they're cutting corners everywhere with hygiene. A good restaurant keeps on top of that stuff. Maintenance, again relating to cutting corners. If items are maintained, condiments and the like, then you can be sure that there are lapses elsewhere. Staff. This is an interesting one, but from experience, if the staff doesn't seem to work well together or not, there's a red flag that the restaurant isn't being looked after properly, leading to issues with the first two. There's probably a bunch of other stuff I've missed. Truth be told, restaurant biz is usually high pressure, so everything like cleaning is done as quickly as possible. Often that translates to poor quality. I usually go out with a skeptical eye of what I've seen/heard. Some of it can be right dodgy. Story 7. I'm just going to tell you this much. I worked at a Golden Corral for 2.5 years, and the cleanliness of the bathroom has no bearing on the cleanliness of the kitchen, because when people hit that bathroom door, it's like some of them turn feral and forget how to act. I can't tell you the number of times I had to go clean up the bathroom during busy times because some nasty mother crapped on the floor and mad all over the place because they think that thing between their legs is a sniper rifle. One time I had to go clean up from behind the toilet, physically right behind the bowl. I couldn't get there without someone throwing it there. Don't blame the kitchen staff because you're in the bathroom after some nasty mother. The hatred I have for people who poop in a bathroom anywhere but the toilet. Ooh, it burns like the sun. I used to work maintenance in a hotel, and I've been called in to scenes. I don't care what the service was like. If you poop on the floor or wall or sink, I hope something bad happens to you. Story 8. Former health inspector here. The first thing I notice is smell. Everything has a unique odor, and after doing it long enough, you can pick it out pretty quickly. Drains that aren't cleaned have a smell. Standing water has a smell. Mice and rats have a smell. Cockroaches have a smell. Within 5 feet of the entrance, I know what kind of sanitation a restaurant has. After that, I look for personal items. If there are personal items strewn about the bar, wait stations, pass-through windows, kitchens, etc., I'll leave. Purses, drinks, and food items from outside are nasty. People do some weird at home. I don't want that stuff all over my restaurant. I was in 3 restaurants across the U.S. every day for over 3 years. I've seen some, but you never forget the smells. Story 9. Son of a chef. Oven chips. Beside the fact that oven chips are if they can't be asked to hand-cut potatoes, I don't put much faith into the rest of the meal. Anything that looks like a general piece of frozen food, think chicken Kievs, always look the same, shape, size, etc. If anything comes out steaming hot, that shouldn't be hot. For example, jacket potatoes. If that comes out and it's erupting with enough steam that the glassware gets condensation, then it's been zapped in the microwave. Melted cheese, which hasn't gotten brown or burn marks on it except on a burger. It's been microwaved instead of a flame. Story 10. In this thread, a lot of people who aren't chefs. There's not a lot that'll put me off, to be honest. Basically, only if there's nothing on the menu I'm willing to try. I don't eat fish, but I'm willing to give anywhere a chance. Dirty toilets aren't always the responsibility of the staff. Someone could have come in and ruined them just before you got there, and the place is so busy that the servers/runners haven't had a chance to clean. And it's usually before/after service they're cleaned. Salt and pepper mills. Any place I go to, I'm hoping I'm not going to need them. The food should be seasoned correctly to the chef's taste so that extra salt is not needed. In general, if the staff are rude, I'll probably give it a pass, but apart from that, I'll give anywhere a go. It's a good way to get inspiration for new stuff too, and what not to do sometimes. That's totally fair. Honestly, there are places that I absolutely love, but I know the bathrooms aren't great and the staff can be iffy, but the food is friggin' great, and they can get away with that stuff because the food is so great. Story 11. Service can tell things about the restaurant. If you enter the restaurant and servers don't pay attention to you, it can mean two things. They are too busy or they are not motivated to work. If they are too busy, it means the owner doesn't want to hire more people, which means the owner wants to save money or does not pay attention to his place. If he wants to save money by not hiring enough, he will do so in the kitchen. If they are not motivated to work, there are problems among staff or they are not getting paid enough. Story 12. I work as a service and occasional line cook for several years. Number one red flag is the spouts on the soda fountain. Those things are one of the easiest things to clean in the entire place, so if they're mildewy, that kills my interest in eating there. I'm fine with a bit of mess elsewhere, especially in a high-volume place since it will get messy over the course of the day. But those spouts take multiple days of no washing to get to a point where they are noticeably disgusting. Story 13. Do you guys saying that the bathroom being disgusting is a sign of gross staff? Please go work at a restaurant for a week. Unless you're talking about non-busy hours, the bathroom is going to get super gross in a matter of minutes. I cannot keep up with the public's disgusting bathroom habits and still do the rest of my job. And I am a picky but fast cleaner. It was much easier to keep the kitchen and tables clean than the bathroom. For some reason, people think it's okay to stop being a decent human being in public bathrooms. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. Story 14. I'm not very bothered with smells, etc. within reason, obviously. A Chinese restaurant cooking traditional food will smell different to a Mexican place, etc. Red flags for me if there is a weekly/daily special board. Mondays are half-off burger day. Tuesday it's 2 steaks for 1 day, etc. If a place has a dedicated birthday song/dance they force the staff to perform, I run. I cannot stand having staff sing to me. It genuinely puts my anxiety to high. I went to a Cold Stone Creamery in Duluth, my favorite city in all of Minnesota. I got to the end of the line and saw a tip jar that said, "Leave a tip, get a song." I put in $5 looking at the cashier and said, "Please don't sing." He rang a bell and all the staff sang. I don't blame them, but I never went back. Story 15. 1. When the menu has a large variety of options, but they're not closely related to each other or even the theme of the restaurant. 2. Empty parking lot at peak times and an empty room. 3. When in front of the house or servers don't know their menu. 4. When it takes 10 minutes just to get water. 5. Flies, not gnats, I'm talking about house flies. 6. Dirty menus, cups, and plates. Story 16. Not quite an answer to the question, but if the kitchen closes at 10 p.m., don't order food at 9:55. The chef is going to hate you because you're now the reason they have to stay in work longer. They're either going to rush your order and make it bad or actively hate you and spit in it or something. Most chefs are and super highly strung and or cokeheads. Source: waiter for years. Story 17. Former cook here. I can't bring myself to describe my previous job as a chef as I merely warmed up food. I always watched out for stressed out staff. If the staff are overworked and not coping in the customer-facing side of the business, then things could very well be much worse behind the scenes. People will cut corners and will do anything to get rid of backed up meals and tickets. Cleaning and hygiene can go out the window in stressful situations. Story 18. Culinary student here. Kobe beef anything. If you can afford it, chances are it's not the real thing. Real Kobe beef was only very recently approved for sale outside of Japan on an extremely limited basis. And it's several $100s per pound. So if you see Kobe beef sliders for $6.99 or an 8-ounce Kobe filet mignon for $80, that means whatever place you're eating in thinks you're a dim-witted sucker. Which means they're probably inflating a lot of the other food on the menu, too. Saying Wagyu is a little better, and it's more common now than it was a few years ago, but American Wagyu is still mostly USDA Prime that was finished on a little drink. I saw a video once where a person was told a burger they were eating was a Kobe beef burger, I think. They were moaning about how good it was because of that, until, of course, they were told it was grocery store chuck. Story 19. All of the top answers say they are not chefs, but LOL. Okay, I am a chef, and the answer is I rarely go out to eat. The last thing you want to do after working all day is go to another restaurant. Frankly, going out is almost always a letdown. It's hard to enjoy a meal when you know you could have made it better yourself for a quarter of the cost. Story 20. If I walk into a Mexican restaurant in Texas and I'm the only Mexican, I know I can just walk the f*** out and not miss out on anything. My former LPO. True for most ethnic food. If you live in an area with a large population of X and you only see white people going to that restaurant, that should tell you something about the food. Story 21. 1. Servers aggressively pushing certain drinks or items. 2. Multi-page menus with every cuisine imaginable. 3. The floor. Is the floor clean or is it disgusting? I won't eat somewhere that has dirty floors and isn't like a street eats kind of place. Story 22. I went to a brunch recently and the head chef/owner walked in the front door with an axe, walked through the dining area and into the kitchen where he proceeded to axe the walk-in cooler to shreds. Not a chef, but I think that's a red flag. I mean, look, I don't know why, but for some reason that appeals to me. I genuinely don't understand, but my brain was immediately like, I would definitely eat there. Is it just me? Story 23. At Italian restaurants, I look at the olive oil that's given on the table. If it's a light-colored oil, then it's not that great in quality and they're cutting corners. It makes me wonder what other corners they're cutting. Story 24. Not a chef, but my thing is the size of the menu. This isn't always true, but sometimes I think the smaller the menu, the better the food. If a place has an enormous menu, I always assume they're lacking in quality. Story 25. In nicer restaurants, servers who don't know the menu. A server should be able to describe any dish on the menu in basic terms. If they can't, there's some fundamental communication problems among the staff. Story 26. Ask the staff what they recommend. If either they haven't eaten anything on the menu or they don't know what to say, it's a red flag. There's a reason why they don't eat the food there. Story 27. I worked in a restaurant for 7 years and there's pretty much nothing within reason that would prevent me from eating at a restaurant. That's the kind of advice I'm looking for. Eat, consume, feed. Story 28. I always look at how many pieces of flair the serving staff is wearing. I see 15 pieces as a bare minimum, so anything less than that is definitely a red flag. Anything more than that is cheeky fine. Story 29. The chef should never leave the kitchen in his hat or apron. It should be a reflex habit to remove and put them on the door along with washing hands. If they do not, then I'd say they are likely to be super unclean. Story 30. Honestly, everyone should just pick up a copy of Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. Seriously, one of the best reads I've ever had, rest his soul. Story 31. Huge menus. Very few restaurants can do many great things, and I don't want to go somewhere that does a lot of okay meals. Story 32. If a barbecue joint doesn't have a couple health code violations, are they really trying to put out good food? Honestly, I can respect this a little. I know I shouldn't, but yeah, I get it. Story 33. I went to Wendy's and saw hella ants on the soda machine, and when I mentioned it, they said, "Oh, we know." Story 34. Anthony Bourdain said dirty menus. If they're not cleaning the menu, they're not cleaning other things. Story 35. Not personally a chef, but I have heard from chef friends that if the bathroom is disgusting, the kitchen won't be any better. Story 36. The smell of the restaurant when I walk in. It should smell good and not sewer. Story 37. Old Russian restaurants usually have quite big red flags. We'll leave now. Story 38. How are they cleaning tables? Is there any sanitizing solution being used, or are they just pushing the crumbs off? I went to a place where you could smell how dirty the rag was that they used to clean the tables. Left. I cannot stand that smell, and frankly, that said a lot to me. Story 39. Not a chef, but here's a PSA. Most restaurants get their fresh fish on Tuesdays. Don't get the Sunday/Monday fish special. Story 40. You tell your waiter there's a fly in your soup and he adds it to your bill. Story 41. I just assume they are all gross and drink to forget about it. Story 42. Chinese restaurant doesn't have Chinese people working in it. Story 43. When you see the Kitchen Nightmares van parking outside. Story 44, mice droppings, roaches moving, and yes, dirty restrooms. Story 45, if Gordon Ramsay is there. Story 46, in this thread, not a chef, but... Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.